ESPN senior writer Baxter Holmes joins us now on Coast to Coast. Baxter wrote the article. There's tons to sift through here. You spoke with a lot of people. So in terms of brevity, what would you say? Who is responsible for the Lakers' dysfunction?
I think any organization, you have to look at the very top. Jeannie Buss hired Rob Pelinka and Irvin Johnson, both with no front office experience. And then the various things that happened after they came into their positions and the dynamics and the way that the organization would change. I think any organization, no matter what happens ultimately, and Jeannie Buss has said this publicly, that she's held accountable and that she oversees both basketball and the business side of it. So ultimately it stops with her.
Okay, so Jeannie, you say, is responsible because she hired two people who had no front office experience. And just by way of background, those two people have their own separate issues coming into this organization. You documented in your article that people said Magic was a bully. He was intimidating. What did you find? How did he intimidate people?
So in his time in the office, and he was absent quite a bit, but people would describe a duality to him. There would be Irvin, and then there would be Magic. And who are we going to see today? Magic is the very charismatic one, the big smile and whatnot. But there was also Irvin, who could be very demonstrative, confrontational. People described him as bullying and whatnot. And I had people tell me in some
form or fashion. What does bullying mean, though? Here's my question.
Berating staffers in meetings, very loud, kind of, when they got hired, they talked about wanting a collaborative sort of environment, communication with people. And that basically from the get-go didn't seem to be the case, according to staffers I talked to. Another instance, when Magic, there was a meeting with basketball operations staffers, and I'm told that Magic pointed up to a desk where his desk would be and said something along the lines of, I have a stack of 1,000 resumes. I can replace anyone at any time. And it set forth this tone for his demeanor over the next couple of years, people would tell me there.
Now, Baxter, when you interviewed these people, and you say there were two different Magics, an Irvin and a Magic, do you believe that some of the people you interviewed thought they were getting Magic? Because the businessman clearly has shown who he is, and I have no problem. I understand how he behaves. I've heard of this, but is this unusual in an organization?
Well, yeah, they would, one staffer said something along the lines, I believe it's in the piece, of it was a roller coaster of up and down with him. So they would see Magic from time to time.
Sure.
They would also see Irvin from time to time. And the pressure, the overall, obviously to get the Lakers back to the contending status for which they've enjoyed for so long was high on everybody. But the dynamics both with Irvin and then Rob in the office and their different demeanors with staffers, it all added up to what ultimately became a very dysfunctional culture and atmosphere.
Okay, lastly, the Rich Paul question. What did he do that was different from what any other agent would do if they had a superstar?
Agents who have superstars, obviously, they're going to receive some level of access throughout the NBA, but some context is important here. When Rob and Irvin ascended to their post, they began allowing more access to agents than the previous Lakers administration had. Now, so people in the organization would see agents more, but they started seeing the influence of Rich Paul and Clutch in ways that were unusual to them and even to other people around the league, GMs, agents, coaches, executives, such as writing on the team charter, which many of these people have told me is something unheard of, and they can't recall any instances of that happening at any other organization. That's just one example. Obviously, there's others in the piece, but you have situations with perceptions about him ousting or trying to oust the coaching staff, or the Anthony Davis trade talks and how everything fall apart and how that all plays into it. So there's plenty there.
And there's plenty more to read. Your article is up right now on ESPN.com. The failed reboot. Thank you so much for joining us here on Coast to Coast, guys. Coming up ahead, we're going to talk about at the bottom of the hour a former Laker Meta World Peace. He'll join us. What he makes of Magic's exit, the Lakers' dysfunction, and how today's news impacts how LA will get better. That's coming up next.
Let's get into football. The Giants in their second week of OTAs. Both Eli Manning and the team's first-rounder Daniel Jones have been taking part in these voluntary practices, and that has been the central focus of much of the attention and reporting surrounding this team. Our Giants reporter Jordan Renaud joins us now live from East Rutherford. Pat Sherman, I know, spoke to the media just a few minutes ago. Jordan, what are the Giants seeing so far from Daniel Jones? Obviously not a lot going on, but what have they seen so far? Jordan, can you hear me?
Yeah, well, today the weather conditions weren't great. It actually started raining pretty hard during practice. I can hear you. Can you hear me? David, you there?
Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, what the Giants saw at practice today was Daniel Jones throwing a strike down the middle of the field. What the Giants saw today was a strike from Daniel Jones down the middle of the field. Rainy conditions, a little wind in East Rutherford. And that was one of the things that you heard about Daniel Jones before, the Giants drafted him, was the arm strength might be a concern. But I spoke to a bunch of players over the past couple days, and what one of them told me was he has a really big arm. So that is a box that seems to be checked for the Giants. Another thing, when it comes to off the field, that's where Pat Shurmur sees a lot of similarities between Jones and Eli Manning, and the Giants, they like that.
Personality-wise, I would say in some ways they're similar. As we get to know Daniel Jones and his personality more, they're very calm in their approach, but they're very fiery under the covers, and I think that's the. I don't think you want to misrepresent either one of them, because they're both very fiery about making sure things are done properly. They demand it of themselves, and they demand it of the people around them.
Now, Eli Manning, he's in his 16th professional season, right? Has 2 Super Bowls. So if the Giants can get that kind of production from Daniel Jones or anything even close to that, and he could emulate Eli in that way, I think they'll be happy with that as well, for sure.
Absolutely. We'll see how they finesse the situation with the long-time, 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback and the first-round pick. Jordan Renan giving us the latest from East Rutherford. Let's take a look further at Eli. Since winning his second Super Bowl in 2011, Manning is the leader in 2 dubious categories. No starting quarterback has lost more games nor lost the football more often than Eli Manning. He's scheduled to count over $23 million against the Giants cap this season, the most by any player on the team, and the 9th highest cap hit among all quarterbacks. Carrie?
Staying with football, David, Raiders OTAs taking place in a few hours, but this morning they signed guard Richie Incognito, who didn't play last season, last lined up for the Buffalo Bills from 2015 to 2017, appearing in the Pro Bowl each of those seasons. The controversial lineman was at the center of a 2013 investigation into the bullying of a former Miami Dolphin teammate, Jonathan Martin, which led to his suspension and not playing in 2014. He also pled guilty last month to disorderly conduct in Scottsdale, Arizona, after being accused of threatening employees at a funeral home where his father's body was being held.